No one in this hospice has ever cried as much as my dog. I am dying, and he is not allowed in my ward. Other patients are visited by their loved ones, children, grandchildren, friends. They come holding flowers, cards, soft blankets from home, and those quiet words that always sound heavier when time is running out. People say goodbye, but they hold back their tears, as if pretending death will pass them by if they don't look it in the eye. But not my dog Timon. For him, I'm not just a master, I'm his whole world. I first saw him when his mother rejected him and refused to feed him. She nursed 3 other puppies, but not this one. He was small and weak, with a leg damaged at birth, his cries so thin they sounded like broken glass. I fed him from a baby bottle. Later, when a coyote cornered him behind the shed, I fought it off with my bare hands, screaming like some half-crazed caveman. Timon has been grateful to me for his life ever since. And now, at the end of mine, he's sitting on the threshold of the hospice, crying like he understands everything. I hear him sometimes through the window, soft, aching whimpers that cut through the morphine haze and straight into my chest. He hasn't eaten since I was brought here. The nurses tried shooing him away, but he keeps coming back, walking the 11 kilometers from my house every day like some 4-legged ghost. I should be used to loneliness by now, but this is different. I wasn't always alone, though it feels like I was. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, the oldest of 2 boys. My parents adored my younger brother, Michael, and tolerated me. I don't remember when I first noticed the difference, but it was there, simmering beneath everything: who got the bigger slice of pie, who got tucked in at night, whose drawings were pinned to the fridge. Michael had this angelic face that made adults melt. He could fake innocence like it was an art form. But behind closed doors, he was cruel in ways that were calculated. He cut my favorite shirt into ribbons with Mom's sewing scissors. He smeared glue inside my math notebook so the pages stuck together right before a big test. Once, he slipped a bag of crushed Tylenol into my backpack and told everyone at school I was selling drugs. The worst was the fire. I woke up one night to the smell of burning hair. Michael stood there, giggling, holding a lighter. I screamed, slapped at my head, and our parents came rushing in, only to scold me for playing with matches. Michael cried crocodile tears on cue, and they believed him. They always did. For years, I tried to tell them. Every time, the same result: Mom's tight-lipped sigh, Dad's disappointed shake of the head, Michael's smirk behind their backs. Then one day, Aunt Carol came over for dinner. She was my dad's sister, divorced, the black sheep of the family. Maybe she noticed something in my posture, or maybe she just had the instinct for broken kids, but when she saw the fresh bruises on my arm, she didn't stay silent. 2 days later, she drove me to a small karate studio downtown. "Learn to fight," she said. "Not so you can hurt him, but so he'll know you can." I was 14 then, rail-thin and shaking most of the time, but something shifted after that. It wasn't about throwing punches, it was about standing up straight, meeting eyes, refusing to be small. Michael didn't like it. The first time I stopped flinching when he raised his hand, he went pale. When I caught his wrist mid-swing, something unspoken passed between us. He never tried to hit me again, but the psychological games escalated. By the time I was 17, I knew there was no place for me in that house. I applied to a college 3 states away and got in. The day I left, I packed a single duffel bag. No hugs, no tears. Mom stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes. Dad muttered something about being careful out there. Michael leaned against the doorframe, that same infuriating smirk playing on his lips. "Don't forget to write," he said. "Oh wait, no one's gonna read it." I walked out without a word. It was liberating, terrifying, too, but for the first time, I was breathing air that didn't reek of resentment. College was hard. I had no money, no safety net, no family to call. I worked 3 jobs, washing dishes, hauling furniture, tutoring kids who were somehow younger and smarter than me. Every dollar mattered. Every decision felt like it carved out a little more of my freedom. I bought my first car, a rusted-out '91 Corolla that sounded like a dying lawnmower, with tips from waiting tables. I rented a crappy studio apartment above a laundromat, where the walls vibrated with dryers spinning late into the night. It smelled like detergent and burnt coffee, but it was mine. And then, for the first time in my life, I fell in love. Her name was Emily. She had green eyes that looked like they belonged in someone else's face, too deep, too alive for this world. She laughed like she didn't care who heard. She made me believe, briefly, that maybe I hadn't been cursed from birth. We dated for 2 years. I saved up for a ring. A week before our wedding, she sat me down, shaking, crying harder than I'd ever seen her. And then she told me. Michael. She was pregnant. By him. I don't remember much after that, just this ringing silence, like the world had folded in on itself. I walked out of the apartment and kept walking until my legs went numb. 2 months later, I got an invitation in the mail. My brother's wedding. To Emily. At the bottom, in his handwriting. You don't have to bring a gift. The greatest gift for everyone will be if you disappear. So I did. And yet, sitting here now, watching the sun bleed into the hospice garden, I wonder if disappearing was ever enough. I built a life so far away from them it felt like another planet. I started over, worked my hands bloody building a furniture company from nothing. I gave homes texture, shape, memory. I thought that would fill the hole. It didn't. But something else did. Timon. That's where I'll stop for today. Because I hear him crying again, just outside the window. And I swear, God help me, I'm not imagining it this time. They say time heals everything. That's a lie. What time really does is cover old wounds with thin scabs, and when life rips them open again, they bleed worse than before. After Michael's betrayal, I spent 5 years in quiet exile. No calls home. No holidays. No explanations. I worked, saved, sweated through 14-hour days until my palms were a permanent map of calluses and splinters. And slowly, I started to rebuild. I didn't plan on starting a business. It happened by accident. I was working part-time at a local carpentry shop, sanding table edges and staining cabinet doors, when the owner, an old man named Dennis, had a stroke. His kids didn't want the shop. They were Silicon Valley types, allergic to sawdust and real labor. Dennis liked me. He sold me the shop for cheap, practically gave it away. I borrowed every cent I could, took out loans I had no business taking, and renamed it Redwood and Iron. That's when everything changed. I wasn't rich, not then, but I was proud. For the first time in my life, I was creating something that would outlast me. Our tables weren't just furniture, they were memories waiting to happen. Couples bought them to celebrate new homes. Families passed them down like heirlooms. Every joint, every curve of polished wood carried my fingerprints. But money wasn't the thing that saved me. Animals did. One night, after closing up shop, I heard this pitiful whimpering behind the dumpsters. I found a box with 3 tiny puppies inside, ribs sticking out, eyes sealed shut, one of them already gone cold. I took them home, fed them with a baby bottle, set alarms every 2 hours to keep them alive. 2 survived. And suddenly, people started bringing me more animals. Injured strays, abandoned litters, half-starved cats. My shop slowly became a halfway house for lost creatures. That's how the shelter started. Not from some grand plan, but from a cardboard box by a dumpster. Over time, I expanded, built a separate building right next to the factory, hired volunteers, partnered with vets. I became that guy in town, the one who took in everything no one else wanted. And that's when I met Timon. He was different. Someone left a voicemail one morning about a litter of puppies born under an abandoned barn outside town. I drove out there with a carrier and blankets, thinking it'd be like the others. But Timon's mother had rejected him outright. While his siblings were nursing, he was lying in the hay, shaking, a tiny knot of damp fur and fragile bones. He shouldn't have survived. His left leg was twisted from birth, he could barely crawl. But when I picked him up, he whimpered and nuzzled into my palm like he knew me, like I was already his. I fed him with a bottle for weeks. Slept with him on my chest so he could hear my heartbeat. When a coyote came sniffing around one night, I fought it off with a rake while clutching Timon against my chest. That's the thing about animals, they don't care about your past, your failures, your scars. To him, I wasn't the boy who'd been forgotten or the man who'd been betrayed. I was home. Timon became my shadow. My silent partner in everything. He'd curl up under my workbench while I shaped wood, follow me on deliveries, ride shotgun in my beat-up truck like we were kings of the road. For the first time, I felt whole. Then, they came back. It started with an email. Subject line, family emergency. I almost deleted it. But curiosity, or maybe some leftover masochism, made me open it. Dad sick. Real bad. You should come home. Michael. I didn't. 2 weeks later, I got another one. This time from Mom. Joshua, we know you're upset, but this isn't about the past. Please, we need your help. Still, I didn't go. Then came the third email, this one from a lawyer. Turns out, Michael had leveraged my parents' house against some business venture that tanked. They were drowning in debt. And somehow, they decided that I was the lifeboat. I stared at the email for a long time. And for the first time in decades, I laughed. Not out of joy, but out of disbelief. I didn't reply. 3 months later, they showed up. Literally. At my shop. I remember the sound of the bell above the door, the soft shuffle of feet, the way the air thickened instantly. I looked up from sanding a tabletop, and there they were, Mom, older and grayer but still carrying that same permanent look of disappointment. And behind her, Michael. He looked different. Not softer, not humbled. Just worn. Like life had finally started taking chunks out of him the way he used to do to me. Josh, he said, smiling like we were childhood buddies. It's been too long. I didn't answer. They didn't come for reconciliation. Not really. They came for money. Michael spun some sob story about Dad's experimental treatments, about saving the family home, about giving his kids the life they deserve. He even had the audacity to choke up at one point, though I noticed there were no tears in his eyes. I just listened. Then he dropped the real bomb. Emily. She was sick too, he said. And their eldest son, my would-have-been son, needed an expensive surgery. The silence between us stretched until it snapped. I don't have any money, I said. That wasn't entirely true, the business was thriving, but I wasn't about to bankroll the same people who'd left me bleeding at every turn. Michael's mask cracked. The charming little brother act slipped, and for the first time in years, I saw the same boy who used to hold a lighter over my sleeping head. You think you're better than us now, he hissed. You think this makes you a family man? Running a shelter for mutts instead of taking care of your own blood? Behind him, Mom just stood there, silent. Not defending him. Not defending me. Just, neutral, like Switzerland. I felt Timon press against my leg. I reached down, fingers curling in his fur, grounding myself. This, I said softly, looking at my dog, is my family. They left angry. But that wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. Because less than a year later, I got the diagnosis. And suddenly, they were back, circling like vultures, whispering about inheritance, about making things right, about finally coming home. I should have been furious. But mostly, I was tired. So I called my best friend, Dennis's son, Mark, and signed the papers transferring redwood and iron to him. The shelter, too. He'd been with me since day one, sweating alongside me, never asking for anything, never disappearing when things got hard. If anyone deserved it, it was him. And when I told my family, well, let's just say I've never seen someone turn red that fast. You're cutting us out. Michael snarled. We're your blood, Josh. You owe us. I smiled faintly. No, I said. I don't. Now I'm here. In this bed. Skin gray, veins collapsing under the breath rattling like a faulty engine. And outside the window, 11 kilometers away from the house he came from, my dog is crying. He knows. Somehow, he knows. I never believed dogs could understand death. Not really. I thought they sensed fear, hunger, maybe a bad mood. But death? That seemed human. Reserved. Untouchable. Until Timon. It started slowly. He stopped greeting me at the door like he always did. He stayed close, silent, pressing his body against mine, resting his head on my chest. At night, instead of curling into his little blanket nest, he stayed beside my bed, paw on the mattress edge, staring at me like he was reading the rhythm of my heartbeat. The coughs got worse that week. They rattled through my lungs like gravel in a tin can. My chest burned, my legs ached, and every step toward the bathroom felt like climbing a mountain in chains. Timon wouldn't leave my side. Lydia noticed it first. She was the night nurse, young, cautious, always precise with the machines, but kind in a way that didn't feel performative. She'd peek in, give me a small smile, then glance at Timon with a frown. You shouldn't have him here, she whispered one night. He's not allowed. I don't care, I rasped. He's the only one I have. She didn't argue. She just left, and the next hour, I swear Timon seemed to understand her unspoken warning. He sat by the door but didn't leave. It got worse when the medicine stopped working. The hospice doctor explained it gently, Joshua, the disease has progressed faster than expected. We're moving to comfort care. I nodded. Not much else to say. My hands shook as I reached for the call button. Timon pressed his snout against mine, low whine vibrating in his chest. I didn't need words. He knew. That night, I barely slept. I remember the sound of his nails on the linoleum. I remember the whimper that climbed into my ear, heart-wrenching, unbearable. I pressed my hand into his fur. The warmth. The trust. The unconditional love that had carried me through childhood, through betrayal, through life itself. And I started thinking about all the people who had left me, my parents, Michael, Emily, everyone who claimed I owed them something I never did. I realized something, it wasn't just anger I felt. It was relief. Timon had come all this way, knowing somehow that my time was near. And he was staying. Even when everyone else had failed. A week later, my breathing became shallow. The nurses whispered outside my door. He's leaving. He isn't eating, he isn't asking for water. He will leave today. I didn't understand at first. Timon's whining had grown louder, desperate. My mind, clouded by painkillers, tried to dismiss it. But when I opened my eyes, I saw her, Lydia. She looked at me, eyes wide, hands trembling. He's out there, she whispered. Do you want to see him? I wanted to laugh through the tears. Of course I did. She opened the door, careful, nervous, glancing toward the head nurse who had just left the floor. Timon bounded in, fur bristling, tail wagging with a frenzied energy that seemed impossible for a dog so focused and intelligent. He pressed himself to me immediately, licking my hands, whining. His eyes were wide, impossibly sad and impossibly joyous at the same time. A single tear rolled down my cheek. You made it," I whispered. My voice cracked. "You always make it." He pressed his paw over mine. I could feel the pulse, the warmth, the life in him. It was more than love. It was loyalty. It was salvation. I tried to speak again, but no words came. Only tears, streaming freely. The hours passed slowly. I held him close, felt the rise and fall of his chest against mine, listened to his soft whimpers. He never left. Even when I drifted in and out, Timon stayed. And Lydia, brave, patient, gentle Lydia, never left either. She sat in the corner, holding my hand when I needed support, making sure the dog could be here with me, even when it went against the rules. It was strange, this intimacy, human, animal, and nurse, 3 lives intertwined at the edge of the world. I remembered everything, the cardboard box of puppies, the smell of sawdust in the shop, the betrayal, the lies, the moments I thought I'd never see sunlight again. And now, with Timon's paw on mine, I could feel some strange peace washing over me. "Promise me," I whispered into his fur, "you'll always come to my grave. You'll never let it be overgrown with weeds." His head lifted slightly. A soft whine, a single lick on my hand. It was an answer. Hours later, when the sun broke through the clouds and spilled golden light across the hospice garden, I felt it, that quiet, inevitable letting go. Timon whimpered, pressed against me, tears in his eyes. I whispered to him, "I'm not afraid, because you're here." Lydia watched, silently supporting, holding back tears of her own. She knew the moment was near. And when it finally came, when I took my last breath, I wasn't alone. Not really. Because my dog was there. I woke that morning to the sound of voices in the hall. Not the soft whispers of nurses or the occasional beep of monitors, but sharp, clipped tones, filled with calculation. My chest ached, each breath a reminder that I was already running out of time. I could tell, just from the sound, who it was. Mom. Michael. I didn't move. Timon pressed close, his warmth a shield against the storm. They walked in like they owned the place. Mom's heels clicked on the floor, Michael's smug grin was pasted perfectly on his face. They weren't here to see me. They were here to stake a claim. Mom's eyes flicked over the machines, the IVs, my frail body. "Joshua," she said, her voice sharp, not soft. "We need to talk about the business. The shelter. Everything." I didn't answer. Michael stepped closer, towering over the bed. "Don't play games. You know we're family. You owe us." I laughed, bitter and low. "Family? You wouldn't know family if it bit you in the ass." Timon growled softly, low in his chest, a warning. Mom's eyes widened. She'd never seen him like this. Michael didn't back down. "You think you're better than us now? With your fancy factory, your little dog, your shelter. We've been left to rot while you've lived like a king." I could see it all now. The greed. The hypocrisy. The arrogance that hadn't changed since childhood. "I'm dying," I said quietly. "You're too late." Mom's face twisted. "You're not going to." "Enough." My voice shook, but I forced it stronger. "Everything I built. It's going to people who actually cared. Mark, my friend, the people who showed up when everyone else walked away. Not you. Not any of you." Michael's jaw tightened. "You think you can just erase us?" Timon stood fully, paws on the bed, ears back, growling like he was the only thing keeping me tethered to this world. "He already has," I said. Mom's hands trembled. She tried the pity card. "Joshua, don't be like this. We're your blood. We deserve." I shook my head. "No. You never deserved me. You wanted me gone once. You wanted me gone again. And now, you're standing here, hoping for a piece of what I've created. Not happening. Michael's face turned red, lips curling. You're going to regret this. You think we won't come back? We will. Every last cent will be ours. I smiled faintly, closing my eyes for a moment. Timon pressed against me, paw over mine. I whispered softly, as long as you're here, I'm not afraid. They left eventually, storming down the hall, voices rising into the air like poisonous wind. Nurses peeked out, some shaking their heads, some glancing at Timon with awe. You're amazing, Lydia said softly, sitting beside me. I've never seen anything like that loyalty before. Tears pricked my eyes. He saved me more times than I can count. And she nodded. She understood. She didn't need words. Later that day, I drifted in and out of sleep. The 4-drip ticked, Timon at my side, the sun cutting through the blinds in long, warm stripes across the floor. I thought about everything I'd been through, the childhood, Michael's betrayal, Emily, the losses, the betrayals, the victories. And I realized, finally, that the only thing that mattered was this moment. Not money. Not revenge. Not approval. Only love. And Timon. That evening, Mom called again. This time, a soft voice. Regret. Pleading. I didn't answer. I hadn't eaten, hadn't asked for water, didn't care. I was ready. Timon whined as if he could feel it too. His head pressed against my chest. I whispered, I see you, my friend. I see everything you've done. Lydia held my hand, trembling. He's going to leave us soon, isn't he? I nodded faintly, smiling through the haze of painkillers. But he'll be waiting, I said, as always. The night dragged on. Shadows stretched across the room, flickering in the soft lamplight. Timon refused to leave my side. At one point, he rested his head on my chest, eyes full of human-like sorrow, tears spilling down his cheeks. I couldn't help but smile. You've been with me from the beginning, through everything, I whispered. I don't know what I'd have done without you. And he pressed his paw on mine, as if to say, I'll never leave. Not now. Not ever. The whispers in the hall had stopped. Outside, the world moved on. But inside, it was quiet, sacred. Timon and I, together, holding on to each other until the very end. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of his fur seep into me. I could feel the life slipping away, but also the love, so strong, so fierce, it burned through the pain. And somewhere, deep down, I knew, no matter what happened next, I would never truly be alone. The morning was gray, thick with fog. I could hear the hospice humming, machines, nurses' soft footsteps, the distant rumble of traffic outside. But all of it felt like it was happening somewhere else, in another world. My world had shrunk to the bed, the 4-drip, and Timon's warm body pressed against mine. I didn't have the strength to move, to speak, or even to cry. But I could feel him, every beat of his heart, every soft whine, every brush of his fur against my skin. It was enough. The door opened slowly, and Michael appeared again, followed by Mom. They'd heard I was critical, and now they wanted their last chance, their final plea. Joshua, Mom said softly, almost timidly. Please, we just want to say goodbye. Maybe we can reconcile. Michael's eyes were calculating, sharp, trying to find the gap in my defenses, the moment of weakness. I smiled faintly, my chest rising with labored breaths. You had your chance, I whispered. You lost it. Timon growled low, a sound that made Michael freeze mid-step. Even my parents recoiled slightly. You're not serious, Michael said. His voice trembled with anger and disbelief. I've been serious my whole life, I said. The only family I need is here. I pressed my hand into Timon's fur, feeling the warmth and the loyalty that had carried me through decades of betrayal. They left, slamming the door. I could hear them arguing down the hall. I didn't care. I had Timon. Lydia stayed close, holding my hand. "Do you want me to stay until the end?" she asked softly. "Yes," I whispered. "And don't leave him alone, either." She nodded, stroking Timon's fur gently. The dog had been quiet for a moment, sitting at my side, head down, eyes full of sorrow. Now he pressed himself closer, as if he understood the truth I couldn't speak aloud. I was going to leave him soon. Hours passed. I drifted in and out, memories flashing, the cardboard box of puppies, the smell of sawdust in my workshop, the sound of Michael laughing as he set my hair on fire when I was 12, the feel of Emily's hand in mine before the betrayal, every hurt, every victory. Timon's warmth never left me. His paw was always on mine. His head rested on my chest. He was my anchor. I whispered to him, "I'm not afraid. You've been with me through everything. You'll come to my grave, won't you?" He licked my hand once, then placed his paw over mine. I could almost hear it, a promise. Near sunset, I felt the final slipping away. My breath became shallow, each exhale a small victory against the inevitable. Timon whimpered, pressed his face against mine. His eyes were wide, shimmering with tears, human-like in their sorrow. "Good boy," I whispered. "You've always been a good boy." I felt Lydia's hand on mine. "He's saying goodbye," she said softly. I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. Timon's muzzle brushed mine. One final lick, and I felt it, the bridge between life and what comes next. I could almost hear his voice in my mind, "I'll be here. Always." I smiled, a single tear trailing down my temple. "I love you, Timon. Thank you, for everything." And then, silence. The nurses whispered afterward, standing just outside the room. "He's gone," one said softly. "And the dog, he won't leave. Look at him." Timon sat on the threshold, ears drooping, eyes wet. He didn't move. He didn't eat. He just waited. By the time the head nurse came back, one of the braver nurses, Lydia, gently lifted the rule against visitors. She opened the door fully, letting Timon into the room one last time. He padded over to my side, nose nudging my hand, silent tears rolling down his face. The ward held its breath. And then Timon lay down beside me, resting his head on my chest, his warm body pressed against mine, letting me go in his own way, holding my hand in the final, eternal embrace. Outside, my parents and Michael waited. Mom called after me, "No one will come to your grave. It'll be overgrown with weeds." I could hear Timon's soft whine, then his paw pressing down onto my hand. I had whispered it to him before I left, "As long as I'm alive, I'll come back. I'll keep the grass from growing." And I believed him. The day after I left, the hospice felt empty in a way that no amount of cleaning could erase. Timon stayed on the threshold. He didn't eat. He didn't drink. He didn't move. He just sat there, eyes wet, looking at the doorway where I had last been. Nurses whispered about him, murmurs passing through the hallways like a gentle wind carrying sorrow. "Dogs don't do this," one nurse said softly. They cry like humans." He did. And every tear, every shiver, spoke volumes that no words ever could. My relatives didn't get what they wanted. Mom tried to force her way into the business records, to claim redwood and iron, but Mark, the friend I trusted, had everything in order. Michael called constantly, leaving messages of desperation and regret, begging for money, apologizing, trying to manipulate anyone who would listen. But it was too late. The shelter and the factory were safe. My legacy, the life I had fought for, was in the hands of someone who had truly cared. Timon's loyalty, it seemed, was a mirror of my life's truth: love isn't owed. Loyalty isn't bought. And family, sometimes family is the one who stays when everyone else leaves. Lydia visited often after that. She would sit quietly, brushing Timon's fur, telling him softly, he loved you so much. He's still here, with you. I had whispered to her, in my last coherent moments, promise me you'll watch over him. Make sure he's not alone. She kept that promise. Time passed. The seasons changed, but Timon never left the hospice grounds. Every day, he would circle the courtyard, sniffing, waiting, as if he knew I would appear at any moment. Visitors, new patients, nurses, all marveled at the little gray dog with eyes like molten sorrow, sitting patiently for the man who had loved him enough to change both their lives. People whispered stories, he came from 11 kilometers away. He's never left his master's side. He's loyal beyond reason. It was true. And in a way, it was mystical. Not just loyalty, but a bond that defied life and death itself. One day, Lydia brought a small journal to the shelter. Inside, she had written everything, my life, my battles, my victories, and my failures. She left a space at the end, for Timon, for anyone who came to understand the kind of love that can save a person, even in the darkest hours. She read it to him sometimes, though I doubt he understood the words. He felt the love behind them. That was enough. And in the end, it wasn't about revenge or money or recognition. It was about love. Timon remained my only family. He had been my shadow in the darkness, my warmth in the cold, my reason to fight when everything else in life tried to break me. And even after I was gone, he waited. He cried. He remembered. And when people came to my grave, eventually, strangers who had known me through the shelter, through the work I had done, they found it immaculate. No weeds. Just a small gray dog, sitting patiently, watching over the man who had saved him once, and had been saved in turn. I can hear Lydia's voice in the distance. He's still here, Timon. Always here. And I know it's true. Because love like ours doesn't end. Not with death. Not with time. Not with betrayal. It lives on. And my dog, Timon, my only family, will make sure of it.